Fantastic. Thank you for joining us today, everyone. It was encouraging to receive an update today about some of the critical infrastructure that was saved in Jasper, and I'll give you some background on that. And of course, you can see it as well. Rain and cooler temperatures and the incredibly hard work of firefighters have resulted in fire activity that is significantly subdued. However, it is important to note that the fire is still out of control and it remains unsafe for people to return. There'll be some we can't have unlimited re-entry into the park at this time. And I do want to express deep gratitude to the brave men and women currently on the ground in Jasper who are working tirelessly to save as much as they can. We met with a number of the crew who were on the first few days who were fighting, even though in the case of some of them they lost their own homes. So there is now a change in the incident command, and they're going to continue on with that work. So thanks to everyone for their bravery, for their commitment to keeping Albertans safe, and as well keeping their neighbors safe. So today, as you can see, we had the opportunity to visit the Hinton Command Center and the Hinton Training Center alongside Federal Minister of Emergency and Preparedness, Harjit Sajjan, Mayor of Jasper, Richard Ireland. We've also got the Mayor of Hinton, who is Nicholas Nissen. We've got Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services, Mike Ellis, Minister of Forestry and Parks, Todd Lowen, and as well Shane Getson, who will be, he's a neighbor to this riding, and he'll be assisting with some of the inquiries that constituents might be making. It is incredible to see the work that everyone is doing to fight this fire. And here are a few of the things that we have learned. The most significant structural damage is concentrated on the west side of town, southeast of Mayette Avenue. All major infrastructure appears to be successfully protected, including the hospital, emergency services building, both elementary and senior high schools, the activity center, as well as the wastewater treatment plant. Damage assessments do continue, including assessment of critical infrastructure. And we do appreciate everybody's patience as we wait for the conditions to become safe enough for a detailed assessment to be completed. Power and gas do remain shut off at the town site, and in the coming days, ATCO is going to work to restore power and gas. They have to do this building by building to make sure that it is safe, and then house by house. So it is a methodical process that ensures the safety of people and property, and also results in a little bit of delay before people can return home until that work is complete. Connecting homes and businesses back to electricity and gas, though, is a priority, and work is going to be underway to reconnect them as quickly as possible. Although more time is needed to complete a detailed assessment of the damage, it is clear, sadly, that many homes and some businesses have been lost. Our preliminary observation shows that about 33% of Jasper town site injured total or partial structural loss. The upside of that is that it means close to 70% of the town has low to no damage. These preliminary numbers are, of course, better than originally expected. However, the damage is still significant, especially to those who lost their homes and their businesses. And I do want to make it clear that it was the hard work of the firefighters and the frontline workers who protected Jasper from even more damage, and for that we are all grateful. We know that Jasperites are out of their homes, and they will be for several weeks, and we understand the harsh reality residents from Jasper are feeling. So recognizing that residents will be out of their home for more than 7 days. Our government would like to provide some relief sooner. We have an evacuation payment program that normally kicks in after 7 days, but we had a cabinet meeting and a treasury board meeting, so I'm pleased to announce that we are going to expedite our evacuation payment policy. So effective today, eligible evacuees from Jasper and from Jasper National Park can apply to receive a one-time payment to help get the support they need. That's of course $1,250 per adult and $500 per child. To apply, residents can go online to evacuationpayment.alberta.ca. I'll just mention that one more time. evacuationpayment.alberta.ca, or they can go to an Alberta Supports office as well if that's more convenient. There's also a lot of work still ahead of us, and there will be many emotions as we go through all of this, especially for the residents of Jasper. But together we'll get through this, and we will build back. And no matter what comes, we are not going to lose the enduring magic of Jasper. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Minister Harjit Sajjan.
Thank you, Premier, ministers and mayors, for your wonderful coordination and the work that we've been doing. I just want to take this opportunity from the briefing that Premier, myself, ministers and the mayors received. Got a first-hand look of what actually took place, and I want to speak directly to all the people who are involved with fighting on this wildfire. I just want to say absolute thank you. What you had to go through was absolutely horrendous, and your courage saved so many lives. For evacuating people, the structures that you saved, and that's what you need to focus on. And I think all of Canadians owe a debt of gratitude to you for your courage during this extraordinary time. 150 kilometers per hour wind with a firewall that was 150 meters itself, moving so quickly, launching embers and branches on fire about a kilometer. Working that environment is intense. The decision that was made saved as critical infrastructure, and that's what we need to focus on. I also like to give an opportunity, just give an update on what is taking place, also just across the country as well. We do have, as some of you already know, that the firefighters coming from Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Mexico, and they're actually, most of them should be arriving this weekend. Across the country, we have about 1,160 active fires across Canada. 580 have the full response. 280 are currently out of control. 101 are being held. 199 are also out of control. And it's already been mentioned within Alberta, 175 wildfires, 2.3 million hectares that are being burned, 17,000 evacuees. And the RFA, as you know, we already had military on the ground with the commanding officer who is currently here doing the reconnaissance. The vanguard of about 100 personnel already on their way to Edmonton, and then the Alberta Emergency Response folks will figure out where they're going to be needed, and more are also going to be are going to put on standby for a greater response. In addition, Griffin helicopters are already put on standby. One is also immediately ready to go. Hercules transport aircraft is currently in Edmonton, ready to provide support as well. Plus, we have Type 3 firefighters that the Canadian Forces will provide. Plus, Coast Guard has also offered up 2 helicopters and 24 incident command staff. The Salvation Army, the Humanitarian Workforce Program, is also very active in providing meals to the RCMP in Jasper. And also, just Minister Peach will have more to say on the services. But one thing I can tell you, when it comes to issues of benefits, EI, lost documents, all that will be taken care of, making sure that extended hours. I don't want Canadians to feel concerned if they have lost documents. You will be able to get your the appropriate benefits, but he will have more to say about this shortly. And again, once again, I just want to say thank you very much to all the firefighters and all the support personnel, Mayor Pinton, for the wonderful support. And I just want to now have the Mayor of Jasper speak. I had the opportunity to ride with him all the way here, to hear from him. I mean, he's born in Jasper. He knows exactly what that means, not just to all of Canadians as tourists. He's lived it and he knows what the residents feel like. So, Mr. Mayor, over to you.
Thank you, Minister. I am so grateful to have had the opportunity to join the Premier, Minister Sajjan, Minister Ellis, and Mayor Neeson today for a tour of the command center, which now has been moved from Jasper to Hinton. We're grateful for Hinton for allowing us the space to do that. The conditions were such that even the command center couldn't remain in Jasper anymore. The session we had today was such an opportunity to apprise our partners of the degree of preparedness that existed in Jasper National Park and around our community before this fire struck, and to get a sense of the degree of cooperation and collaboration between all of the agencies and the jurisdictions on the ground. And I think the ministers and the Premier, with the questions they asked, came to the realization that despite the best of preparation, despite the years of effort that we've put into this with training sessions to not only to prepare people to deal with emergencies, but to allow them to work together to understand where they each have strengths and where they have resources that they can draw on collectively. It builds bonds and relationships, and those are so necessary when the time comes to put them into real action. So having seen all that, the circumstances were such that despite all of that preparation, the nature of this fire was such that it humbled the humans on the ground. They did everything they could. They are professionals. They knew what they were doing. They had the resources. They did what they could, but in the face of all that, nature prevailed. All of you have seen pictures of that fire, portions of it as it approached. Walls of flame, 100 meters high, spread across half the valley, kilometers wide, unstoppable. It fell into our community. Even as I said, our team had to evacuate, and I know that I was getting a briefing virtually at the time when our own resources were forced out of town because of smoke, and only those firefighters with breathing apparatus could remain. Some of them remain today. The fire continues in our community, so our first priority is, of course, as it always is, the safety of those people who are still on the ground, doing what they can to protect our community. And of course, they're striving to protect those built assets and structures. Later today, more details will emerge, similar to what the Premier spoke about. We have a sense of scale of the damage, roughly 30%, and as the Premier quite rightly notes, that means 70% still standing. Doesn't mean they're undamaged. There could be smoke damage, there could be all sorts of issues. But some of our residents, most of them, will have a home to return to. Some will not. There will be a sad mix of people who have lost their homes and their livelihoods. Some will have lost their livelihoods only and still have a home. Some will have lost a home and not their livelihoods. It's going to be difficult. The pain that will be felt almost defies description. It is beyond comprehension. People are still going to come to terms with it, and throughout the day, more details, I think, will emerge, and people will start to get official notification of whether their home and their business still stands or does not. I am going to take a tour with my colleagues, the Premier and the Minister and others, later today, and I am prepared for the worst, as I hope most of our community will be, because it will be a difficult experience. And yet, I had an opportunity today, driving up, as Minister Sajjan noted, we had long discussions. And we are now talking about re-entry and rebuilding. These are positive things. I don't want to build any false expectations, but re-entry possibilities are emerging. As the Premier noted, all of our critical infrastructure has been saved. It will have to be examined and assessed, but it still stands. I know that TELUS has been allowed entry, and communication towers, all but one cell tower, I understand, have been repaired if they were damaged. ATCO has been allowed re-entry. They are working on re-establishing electric power, first to our critical infrastructure, but they will look at other matters. I understand that they have dealt with infrastructure along the railway, and the railway will be operational again. These are good signs. They're excellent signs, and they give a measure of hope to our residents, who can now understand that there will be homes to come to, and as I said yesterday, if there are homes for some, there is community for all. We will all get back. Some, of course, will have lost more than others have. My heart and the hearts of all Canadians go out to them, and we so welcome and appreciate the expressions of sympathy that have come in from across the country and literally from around the world. It is a comfort to those of us on the ground in Jasper, who make Jasper our home, to know that others share our sense of loss. And I thank all of you for including that in your messaging. So as we progress, we will continue to get information. I know that residents are particularly anxious for details. Those details are emerging. There has been a damage assessment, but it's high numbers, as the Premier indicated. And although I have intentionally avoided any speculation, I will conjecture a little bit today that experts will be able to take that broad macro information and start to winnow it down to more detailed information, which will come out to the community and give them the information that they need. It will be a little more difficult with the outlying accommodations surrounding the town, just because of the nature of the terrain and the fact that a wildfire continues to ravage Jasper National Park. It surrounds our community in a sense, and until that is dealt with and people can return safely, our re-entry plans are on hold in any event. But it is a better day, and I don't want to say a brighter day, because I want it to get dark and thunder and lightning, rain like crazy. Well, no lightning. Just but there is starting to emerge the glimmer of hope that we knew would be there, and I'm so glad I've had this opportunity to share all of this with my colleagues from the province and the federal government, whose assistance as we move forward is going to be absolutely necessary. And you've heard from each of them the steps that their jurisdictions are taking with respect to allowing our residents to start getting the supports they need. Documentation won't be an issue. The 7-day waiting rule has been waived. Our people will need the assistance that is offered to get through the next weeks and months probably, and the rebuild could take years. But it feels a bit like a turning point, and devastating as the news will be, I am relieved that we are at a point where we can start giving detailed information very shortly to our residents. That is exactly what they need, as difficult as it will. Thank you. I will join the Minister and the Premier for questions that you may have. Thank you.
Just one more thing.
Yeah, I believe Minister and Premier.
Yeah, just one more thing. We're just consulting our phones. We've been working on trying to coordinate on an announcement around matching the Red Cross donations. So Red Cross launched an appeal on July the 25th, and similar to the last fire season, we have announced that we will be matching that amount over the next 30 days. So we hope that people will go online to Red Cross and donate. I think the Minister also has something to say.
Yes, and the federal government will also be matching alongside the Alberta government as well. And details will be provided more down the road.
Thanks, Minister. We're going to questions now. We're going to try and go left to right. We only have time for a few questions because we've got to get off to Jasper. So we'll
Premier, that 33%, do we know how many homes, how many structures that actually represents, to help people at home sort of get a better sense?
I think the Mayor has a better idea of that configuration of the town. Did you want to maybe give some thoughts?
I mean, dozens, hundreds. I mean, I think people at home are sort of looking for something.
Well, there are about 1,177 structures in town. So we know that about 33% of them have either sustained partial or total damage. And I think that is a residential community in that west and south of Mayette, but we do also know, we've heard and seen resort damage. And we do also know that there's an industrial area that we're going to go and have a look at to assess the damage there too. Did you want to say any more about that?
Yeah, sure. If you guys wouldn't fill up my inbox with requests for interviews, I'd have a reasonable opportunity to find the information, and I'm scrolling through it. But the Premier's right. Just over 1,100 structures in Jasper. 300 plus have been confirmed as lost. I'm thinking from memory, 370 roughly. And of those, predominantly residential neighborhoods. There will be some businesses that have been lost for sure, but the significant damage appears to be in the west end of town. And if you're familiar at all with the map of the town, west and south of Mayette Avenue, which is a broad street up the middle of town, heavily residential, of course. Probably everybody has seen the picture of the Moline Lodge ablaze. That's a hotel at the very west end of town. So we know that has gone, probably the neighboring hotel. But further, the center of town where the core business district is, there will be some loss, but it will hit hardest on our residents.
And
I can get you those numbers later, but
sure.
I can't find them right now.
And given the nature of what's happened with the firefight and the weather, is there any sort of timeline on a gradual reentry for the community? Are we talking a week? Or are we talking?
No. As you have heard throughout the week from the fire personnel from Parks Canada, I can use the same words. It's a dynamic, evolving situation. The fire is still on the landscape. Right now, it helps suppress fire behavior, high humidity, lower temperatures, which is, of course, of great benefit, but higher, drier temperatures are expected again by Monday, and so it's a huge fire. There is no predictability at this point, and until the fire can be deemed to be under control, I don't think we can realistically talk about re-entry plans. That is not to say that we won't continue to develop them. We will prepare as we can for re-entry, but the fire circumstances, as much as anything, dictate that. And it is still too early in the day to be able to determine what that fire behavior is going to be over the coming days.
Go Sean, then we'll go to CTV next.
Mr. Mayor, I spoke to some of your residents yesterday who said for months they've been seeing dead trees all around Jasper, and they call this inevitable. So I wonder what you think about whether Parks Canada, the province, the feds, did everybody do everything they could to prevent this from happening?
Short answer is yes. And it hasn't been the last few years. It's been a decade and more. We live in a forested mountain community. Most of us live there by choice. We love that environment. It is our home and our recreation. We want to be in the mountains, we want to be in nature, and that means our community is exposed to the threat of wildfire. There are lots of forested communities in Alberta that are exposed the same. Ours is different in that it is mountainous terrain, and it is more than just our business center. It is our recreation center. So we use that part all the time. The extent of the forest around us and the condition of the forest absolutely affected by pine beetle, but on such a massive scale that it would be unreasonable to think that we could have prepared. The preparation that was done thoughtfully and professionally, with assistance from the province, with assistance from the federal government, with assistance from the municipality. Fire guards were constructed surrounding the town. What we could do to protect the town was done, and yet, as humans, we stand humbled in the presence of nature. This fire was enormous. It was fast moving. I heard today new information that in the last stages of the fire, as it approached the town and was enormous size, the wall of flame that I discussed earlier, it got pushed by winds up to 125 kilometers per hour. That's certainly unusual for our mountain community, but that's what happened. And in the face of that, to save lives, as is our first priority, as it always must be, firefighters had to withdraw and get out. And so, yes, conditions were indeed present for that sort of calamity. Steps were taken to protect us, but we cannot do enough to protect us against all risk, and that is what becomes.
And we'll go to TTV here next, and Radio Canada.
Here, Ireland, you've no doubt been speaking to people from Jasper, a smaller community. They probably all have your cell number. How have those conversations been? We heard from Tourism Jasper yesterday in a statement that the resolve and strength, talking about how the mountains have stood will continue to stand like that. They're eternal. We're not going anywhere. What sort of sentiments are you hearing?
I am hearing similar stuff. I hope that the messages that I have delivered about resilience and strength and rebuilding are more a reflection of the community than myself, by the way. I have the honor and the privilege to speak on behalf of the community. I think I know the community. I think what I'm expressing expresses their views, and the feedback that I've got from the community is that it does. They of course are grieving, and some will be in deeper grief, perhaps today, perhaps tomorrow, when they find out news. And yet, this is a community that they chose, and they will choose to come back and rebuild. So I think those sentiments are accurate, and yes, the mountains have been there, the mountains are still there, they will be there, and so will our community.
All right, Mr. Sajjan, if you may. Backing up on Sean's question, there has been some criticism about military about fire preparedness, pine beetle tree. What's your response?
In fact, actually, as the mayor talked about the briefing that we got, the preparation that has been done here is actually been first class, and from tabletop exercises to actual drills on the ground with all the different agencies in the provincial, federal, everybody involved. In terms of fire smart out, what I was told is this is one of the most fire smart communities in the country. It's actually probably was the first fire smart program was done. Yeah, it was done there as well. And sometimes you can do the best you can, but when you look at the analysis of what took place, and they're taking some very good notes right now, because these winds that came, that shifted, it just changed the whole calculus. What type of fire break do you need for something like that when it's a kilometer long where ambers are flying that much? So this preparation was done. What we need to do is start looking at what are these weather pattern shifts, and we've seen in other communities where, traditionally where you see a fire, it's moving at a certain pace, winds normally going in a certain direction, but all of a sudden the wind shifts, and like the town of Enterprise last year where the same took place. And so we've been getting together as ministers at all levels of Indigenous leadership as well, learning those lessons and trying to apply them across the country to update our fire smart programs. And what we are also doing is working with a private partnership to look at what type of analysis is needed, because the Fire Smart program needs to be different all across the country. Yes, the pine needle has an impact here in Alberta and British Columbia, but each community needs to be analyzed very differently to making sure that what is not just for the fire guard to be created, what type of vegetation needs to go in to actually slow things down. West Kelowna was I saw the firsthand where things were fire smarted in a good way. Those communities weren't, the fire didn't come through. But other communities where it wasn't, you could see the fire just went right through very quickly. The other aspect is also very important, I think it's important for Jasper, is because of the Fire Smart program that they have done, the regrowth actually happens a lot faster. So to answer your question, We're already talking about how do we use these lessons, about how to apply them across the country. But in this case here, the mayor stated, Mother Nature in this case here just won out. It was sheer ferocity of what took place. And I just don't want any of the firefighters on the ground to think all their preparation that they've done, the work that they did, all the briefs we got, is honestly, they saved lives. The decisions that they made, the structure, the critical infrastructures, all of them are intact, right? It's because of their work. And I just want to say thank you for them. And we're going to take the lessons learned and try to apply this across the country for them.
Just to pop in. Sorry, just because I know you'll want accurate information, we just got these numbers. They're preliminary numbers, but so they are subject to change. But we have 1,113 structures in Jasper, 358 destroyed, and 7 damaged.
Okay. Premier, I just want to pick up on that question because do you feel that Jasper National Park has been properly managed when it comes to forestry management? Because we have, dating back to 2018, we have scientists calling this a powder keg waiting to blow up, Jasper National Park. And the concern was that not enough had been done in that time. So do you have concerns with how the federal government has managed this forest?
Look, I don't want to point fingers unless we're managing our own resources perfectly as well. So I've asked Todd Lowen to take a look at the province-wide aging of our forestry stands, because what we find with this particular type of forest, it gets old and dies around 100 years. And so we need to understand what the level of the fire risk is, and then also look at our own provincial parks to see if there's more that we need to do to clear out some of that additional growth, and work collaboratively with the federal government and all of our national parks to see if we can have a coordinated strategy to remove some of that overburden. I don't know, Todd, if you want to comment more on that.
Pardon me. Yes, our forest here in Alberta it's traditionally been a fire developed forest, and we've taken fire off the landscape for decades now, and that has affected our forests across the province. And definitely we need to look at more doing more forest management, both with prescribed burns and harvesting the forest, to make sure that we have a mosaic on the landscape instead of a single-aged structure. When we look at, I think a lot of Albertans that I talk to, they love the way the forest looks right now in their community, and they don't want it to change, but that's not realistic. That forest will change, and it'll change either by us changing it or by a devastating wildfire coming through and changing it. And so I think it's a wider conversation we need to have as we're going forward to make sure that we reduce some of this risk on the landscape and reduce the risk of catastrophic wildfire.
Great. Thanks, guys. We have time for one last question. We're going to go to Radio Canada here to make sure everyone has a chance.
I understand from what you're saying that's going to be your first time back in the community of Jasper today. Just tell us a bit about how are you preparing? What are you kind of anticipating location, what you're going to experience and see?
Firstly, I'm preparing to be away from the cameras. I don't know what my reaction is going to be. It has been a really difficult week. And although I am grateful for this opportunity, I approach it with the knowledge that it is going to be potentially extremely painful. But I think on behalf of the community, it's important that I go and get a sense of what we have to work with. I have been apprised, as have all of you now, of where the fire did the most damage, and that's where my home is. So it's likely to be jarring, and I'm doing my best to prepare myself for it. How I will react remains to be seen.
And did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just to follow on, resident will see you in there and they'll see people and, a camera there, and they might also react to the fact that they're not allowed. And so maybe what's your message to them when we'll go through that?
Yeah, so I need to be able to express thoughts and feelings on behalf of the community. And in order to do that, I think it's important that I confront that reality. It's not an easy thing to do, but it won't be easy for any of our residents. And I happen to be in this role, and yes, I appreciate that others will want to get back, and they are going to be delayed. I have an opportunity. I'm exercising it not on my own behalf, but on behalf of the community, because it better enables me to speak on their behalf when I see the reality on the ground. Thank you.
Premier, can we ask you quickly about small business supports? A few
Sure.
businesses have probably burned. I'll allow you to finish your thought.
Sure.
obviously,
Let me just tell you a few things, because we've obviously as a province been through this several times before. So as I understand it, they're working on calling the home and business owners so that they know what to expect before they see it on TV. I think that that's the respectful thing to do. Is part of the reason why we're wanting to make sure that people are contacted first. The second thing that we have done in the past as a government is enabled for buses to go through and tour the town site prior to re-entry, so people have an idea of what to expect, and so that has already been proposed. I don't know the timing on that, but that's one thing that we would be contemplating doing. The third thing is we're arranging for telephone town halls. I believe my communications for public affairs is aiming for Monday to begin the first telephone town hall, and during last year's fire season, when we had 45,000 people evacuated, we're about 25,000 people evacuated in total right now. We continued that on. We had about 20 town halls that we did so that we can answer questions as they go. So there'll be a constant stream of information. I also understand that there's going to be a technical briefing by the officials today at 2:30. 2:30, so you'll be able to get a little more 2 p.m. Pardon me, 2 p.m. So you'll get more information on that. And we'll continue to do the daily technical updates, the daily situation report. From time to time, if there's an announcement we need to make as government, we'll do a press conference as well, or Mike or Todd will. But that's kind of we want to be able to learn from some of the practices that worked well in previous incidents so that we can bring those forward. If you recall, I think Brian Jean was reminding us today that Fort McMurray fire, believe that they were in after about 28 days. Just want people to understand that this is not a fast process, because you end up with embers. Embers can ignite, and we don't want anybody to be in their home and then all of a sudden there's ignition. We also want to make sure that if there's damage to gas pipelines, that homes are re-energized and put onto gas without leaks. So those things just take time, going one by one. So that's part of the reason for the delay. But I just wanted you to be prepared for some of those things.
This is a technical question. That means people in the community will know about their home by the time those images are broadcast tonight?
So I don't know what no, they're in the process of dialing one by one. Yeah, if you would ask why can't people go into the community as well, that's part of it, is that we just want to make sure that everybody is contacted and so that they know the status of their property.
And we're going to have to hit the road here, folks. So thank you very much for your time.
Small businesses, what kind of support might small businesses expect?
We'll look at previous programs and see what works, but this is one of the reasons why it's so important to have the Red Cross program. That often Red Cross is able to partner with local community groups, identify those needs with local chambers of commerce, local food banks, local animal shelters, local homeless shelters. They act as a bit of an aggregator for all of that contribution. That's why we're happy to be able to match it. The federal government's happy to match it. And then we'll identify, working with the folks on the ground, the kind of supports that they need and try to replicate previous programs that have been successful. But it's a bit soon until we actually get a lay of the land, which we're going to go do right now to see what the nature of the need is going to be.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
Sam, I think you got the... Nah, that's... Oh, that's...
Thank you, Sam. Safe travels, guys.
Yeah.